Hello and welcome. Welcome back to By the People. This is a series at Concord Carlisle Community Television that intends to discuss, intends to inform, and ultimately intends to promote citizen participation in government activities and community affairs. We have the good fortune today of having two very interesting guests with a lot to say. And in the next 30 minutes, we're going to hear from Peggy Wargelin and Corey Atkins. Peggy to my far right, Corey in the middle. And I'll ask each of our guests to say a little bit about themselves with first a brief intro. We'll start with Peggy, and I know you come to us with a background in engineering. Yep. And more recently, graphic design, if I'm correct. You have a local firm, do you?
Yes, actually Wargelin Designs. I work on small business websites and I lay out advertisements and I can do a lot of Photoshop. So okay. Thank you.
And Corey, this is not your first visit to the CCTV studios.
I've been here before.
Corey and I have known each other a bit longer than you and I have, Peggy. I was a community educator in Concord and Carlisle for a number of years, so you and I saw each other at many an event. Yeah. By way of reintroduction for many of our viewers, you are our representative.
Yes, I'm the state representative for the 14th Middlesex District, which is Concord, Carlisle, half of Acton, and 2 precincts in Chelmsford.
And you've served us since the late 90s, correct?
1999, I won in a special election.
Well, welcome to both of you, and thank you.
Thank you.
I want to tell you how it came to be that the three of us got together. Following the election in November, I was a taxpayer, a voter, a citizen who woke up each morning a little bit more confused than the morning before. One of my responses to my confusion about what was so and what I as an individual might do to further educate myself and perhaps help in a positive way affect some change as I saw it, was to reach out to a group by the term Indivisible, the Indivisible organization, if you will. And my first bit of information about the group was it was about resisting the actions of our new president, President Trump. And I thought, well, if it's only resist, I'm not sure, because I think there's more to citizen action than resist. I think there are also a good many things that we should be promoting and fighting for, if you will. Before we go any further, could you tell us a little bit about this Indivisible movement and what it means locally, what it means nationally?
Sure. I found the Indivisible Guide kind of in mid to late January, and I just was so frustrated with the here are 5 things you can do every day lists from every group that I'd ever given to, with it just felt so overwhelming, and I felt like I was being whipsawed, and like every single tweet I'm like, oh my God, we have to do something, and I was feeling so overwhelmed. And the Indivisible Guide was put together by some congressional aides, and what they did was they said, if you want to make a difference and you want to try to keep what we have and have some influence with your members of Congress and your elected officials, this is what they care about and this is what they don't. And this is the way you get their attention, and it's very important to call them. And a lot of it was written for people who were in, like my parents are in Florida. And so, they're very worried about their health care, et cetera, but they're kind of outnumbered with people who are like, no, it's fine. And so I helped them hook up with their Indivisible group. So they have about 80 people to be with and to go together to say, no, we want our health care at their representative's office. But also in there, they have a sort of half-page section that says, but what if my member of Congress is already doing what I want? And it's important even then to interact with your member of Congress or all your elected officials. Let them know that you're watching, that you appreciate it when they're doing what you want them to do. Because I was always the kind of person who's like, well, I know that my person is voting the way I want them to. I'm all set. And it hadn't really occurred to me how useful it is for you to have some ammunition when you're talking to other people. My constituents care. And I heard on the one of the national, they had a Republican in a state who had voted, he voted against the first healthcare trying to reform, and he said, I had 400 calls against and 10 for. I had to vote against it. And I thought, oh my God, 400 calls was enough to make that much of a difference?
Sometimes 25 calls.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh my God, we could really make a difference here. And then I think, and there's so many groups in town. They had a big meeting, and they had a 2-minute spot for each group that was in Concord to speak, and they were still going after an hour and 45 minutes. And the thing I liked about Indivisible was our niche seemed to be we're the only ones who are focused on our elected representatives and trying to get a dialogue going with them. Everybody else was more issue related, and that's great. And a lot of our members they have another group that they do their issue that they're passionate about. So like the Planned Parenthood or the immigration or the health care and things like that. But what they do is they help us by watching the national groups keep track of the legislation, and then they funnel it to us, and we'll do like a call to action.
Calls to action. These aren't then specific and narrow agenda items, although you would characterize them as progressive ones, but it's not restricted to health care, it's not restricted to criminal justice or climate change.
It's anything that is going to be appearing in front of an elected official. So that counts Maura Healey, that counts our sheriff, that count, so like when we heard a sheriff in another county was thinking about sending some of their prisoners down to work on the wall for free, we could call our sheriff and go, you're not going to do that, right?
So Peggy represents a local group that in fact is engaged in just what she said, and that is promoting more dialogue with more elected officials, also establish support where it's due, and I think that would characterize your relationship with Corey, because I think you two are of a like mind on a few political purposes, if you will, and we had a recent meeting in a very public location. It's not open meeting law per se, but
you couldn't get much closer.
but you couldn't get much closer.
That would be
the Dunkin' Donuts on Thoreau Street,
which I use for my district office.
Yes, exactly. The place where everybody knows your name.
Right.
And it was there that the three of us established the connection. And if I recall correctly, we began our conversation with how do we best work with you? How do citizens, individual citizens or loosely organized citizens relate with you, communicate with you, help you affect change in a way that's truly supportive, because you've got only so many hours in the day too.
Right.
How do we use your time well? How do we use our energy well?
First of all, like if you're going to contact me for something you support, email me, because it doesn't tie up my staff.
Sure.
If you disagree, by all means, call or email or whatever, any way you want to communicate. But I don't want to be answering the phone all day saying, "Hey, Corey, you're doing a great." I do want to hear that, but really
So paying attention with real messages is the pat on the back you need.
But the messages are important, because then you can say, no, my constituents are, emailing me left and right that they do want this. They want us to put our energy in there. So when we had the first crisis of banning people from coming into the country, people, just held in place on airplanes, not being allowed to even, get off the airplane. We had Attorney General Maura Healey out there, and we had the ACLU providing lawyers for those people.
People and agencies are already mobilized for that kind of activity.
And you and I'm not an attorney, so we're not really that effective in a scenario like that. But, the Women's March right away just showed, and that it happened all over the world.
Yeah.
You know, that was amazing. I think what's exciting about this time is that a lot of people woke up. That I've had conversations with young women, because I was getting exasperated by all the fights we had as young women just to be able to have our own credit card. Because once you get married, if you change your name, your credit history was wiped out. And so, you know, all of those, you know, just to be able to wear pants.
I missed that one, thank heaven.
I didn't miss that one. I got a free day off from work, free from pay and free from work. So, you know, there were all of these symbolic and other real obstacles that we had to really fight for.
What kind of voice where might Peggy and I have right now that would be useful and effective?
Again, this is good news, bad news, okay? The good news is that most people in Concord are very well aware. They're highly educated, pay attention to issues. The bad news is we're not taking that seriously because we have a predictable point of view. So Massachusetts isn't taking that seriously in a national context in terms of the people who are in power at the moment. Even though Massachusetts, I'm not sure how many people know this, have fielded more candidates for the President of the United States, have had more speakers of the House, more ambassadors around the world, more heads of the Supreme Court. I mean, politics is one of our biggest exports. So it's only recently that we've dropped in numbers in terms of the Congress because of the one man, one vote, which was in our lifetime. But we started the revolution here in Massachusetts. We built this democratic form of government, which is enormously exciting. And that's why we feel like we should own it, because we built it. And we know what we struggled with those concepts of balance of power. So how do you affect? Call up everybody you know in other states is one way. And always mail the speakers and and McConnell, the Senate leadership. Because if they see things flooding in from different parts of the state, they have support, send the letter of support to Markey and Elizabeth Warren.
Okay.
But, and just CC a copy to the leadership. The same with me.
Okay.
Because if I don't get in to see the speaker, he doesn't know 125 people have called over. You know, you have, God, the Attorney General Sessions today, coming out this afternoon, and he's reversing President Obama's, the justice thing.
Saying, in effect, let's go for maximum enforcement.
And be brutal in the prisons.
And, you know.
Well, we've tried that. I started out in juvenile justice. It doesn't work. To incarcerate costs over $50,000 a year. We have technology where you can put an ankle bracelet on somebody and monitor them so
And
that
we're talking
you're not
about drug crimes primarily
crimes,
that had no victims, correct?
non-violent drug crimes. And so he wants to go back to something that has been proven and that the states are moving away from as fast as they can. And so in an instance like that, you let your elected officials in Washington know, their leadership know, the Attorney General know, and then reinforce that at our level in the State House. Because, you know, Maura Healey needs to know that, because if they try to implement, there is federal money that goes into different departments, and if that becomes, even though the courts have said it shouldn't be jeopardized, I'm sure they'll try.
Do we have a good track record in Massachusetts for progressive policies around drug prosecution that didn't involve violence?
No, we went through wild swings of the pendulum with that. Under Governor Bill Dweld, he was the take their TVs, don't let them work out. You know, chain gangs, maybe chain gangs is too much of an exaggeration, but he went the really hardcore route. What happened then is our prisons are overcrowded. They're racially, disproportionate. white people who take cocaine don't get the prison sentences that African American people who smoke crack do. It is the same drug.
And it's an indisputable set of data you're referring to.
Right, and this has been documented throughout the correction system. This is not, I'm not saying anything provocative here. And it's an old, you know, I mean, so we can't say our, if I were African American, I wouldn't want to hear the word justice mentioned in any of these sentences because they have a good case that they don't get it. So when what you wanted, the reincarceration, you know, to the recidivism rate is so high. And, you know, we're training people to go back out on the street. And so unless they get, you know, employment, housing, they're going to come right back. And that's $50 grand a year. To what? Train somebody to be a better criminal?
One thing that can be really helpful in something like healthcare is if you have a personal story that really tugs at the heartstrings, that can be, and you're willing to put your name out, that can be so incredibly helpful for them when they're dealing with other politicians and when they're dealing with the media and stuff. And it doesn't help if you're telling it third hand. They really need to hear it from the person it affects.
There's that, and I'm always encouraging people. We live in a democracy. And what democracy has given you is the First Amendment. You have your own bully pulpit. Write letters to the editor about what you care about. It's really important. They're powerful. Politicians always read them. So that, I mean, and they get read by people in town. And so a lot of people have no idea what government does. So, for example, your healthcare metaphor, and say you have a child who is disabled, and people think, well, we are going to have to make some cuts or raise taxes, given the way our budget in the State House was only 2 days. We have no money, and you'd be advocating for no cuts, but more services so that this little girl would be able to walk at the end of the day, has the hope for that process. Then tell that story. Tell the story of, you know, how the process began, where your child started, where they are now, why this is so important.
How does your group help make that possible for folks who have not exercised that voice? You point them toward Corey and other people who want to hear a certain message at a certain time tied to perhaps a certain legislative activity she's doing?
What we've been doing is we have people who have, you know, feelers out to all the sort of national groups and some state groups too that are watching the legislation. And we tried to do that. It's too hard. Things change all the time. I have no clue. So anyway, they let us know when there's something coming up that's important, and so we'll do a call to action. So we mainly work through a Facebook group, but there are also some people who just never look at Facebook, so we have a separate email list. And we say, you know, call to action, preserve healthcare, and then to do contact the following representatives, and then we give them the, you know, contact information right there so they can do it.
Because people won't look up.
And let people know they need, you know, let them know they need to support bill number whatever, and then below that we'll have details.
We don't know the numbers of the bills because there are too many numbers.
Oh, right.
So you have to say to me, maternity rights for women, you know, working in the workforce.
But anyway, so we try to be like, so that you would, in 2 lines, know whether it's something you want to do or not, and what exactly you're supposed to do, and then we'll put, like, if there's like a little more information or sites you go to, we put below that. And we're trying really hard to make it so you can just skim and find the things that are important to you, and we will have filtered a little bit. We'll let you know things that actually are coming up right then.
Let's continue to look at this question of how your group and others like yours can help somebody like me who would otherwise feel overwhelmed, because when I feel overwhelmed, I feel powerless. I've got a lot of potential agenda items on my plate. They're all pretty important, but I can't work on them all simultaneously, nor can I contact the right official necessarily is the lever to do the work unless I get some help. So that's where you come in. How do you do it?
Well, one of the most useful things I heard was there was a guy who had been organizing. He was a like not professional organizer, but he had been organizing people in Massachusetts since the '60s. And he said, number one, don't burn out. You have to pick one or two things. And I've almost burned out. I have to take a week off now and then because I can't do it. But you have to pick one or two things that you're going to focus on, and you have to not try to convert anybody to those, and then you have to not let anybody else convert you to theirs. And then everybody picks one or two, and then everything's covered. So we try to make it so that there's sort of a ring fence. We are handling issues that relate directly to our elected representatives. And that just sort of ring fences it a little bit. So if you're really concerned about the elections for 2018, great. You can do that. You know, if with the Sanders election for, you know, like, that's great. Be with them too, and then feed us information. But our particular group is just doing that one subset of stuff, and it just sort of keeps it more manageable, at least for me.
It's a good idea to be part of a group that delegates, because even I can't do all of those at once. We have research directors, and once you're a chair, I sat with one aide for I think 10 years, but boy did I recruit interns like crazy. But it is, we live in a very complex society, and there's a lot to know about. But what's nice is people are paying attention.
Yes.
I mean, democracy is a participatory sport, and that people, one of the movements that I'd like to see come out of this, one of the results, is that we teach civics again in the schools, because kids don't know what their rights are and how they're going to act. We know. We came out of a cultural revolution. We were marching in the streets about a war we didn't believe in.
We had curriculum that was intentionally based on turning out citizens that would participate. We were told that as children, weren't we?
Right, and that it was our duty.
Yeah.
You know, that we wouldn't be living in a society like this unless we did this.
What is in that the ring you refer to? Immigration certainly is one area of great attention. Healthcare legislation at the federal level is probably another one.
It's basically anything that's going to show up. So, you know, if there's a nomination hearing going on, if there's, and people, you know, want to voice their opinion on that, if there's, you know, the environmental stuff, there was the animals with the bears and the wolves, you know, shoot them in their dens, so, you know, or climate change, or the, you know, any of the legislation stuff, the justice reform, or the, and then actually there's been a lot at the state level. I've been surprised. I hadn't really paid much attention to the state until now, but there's a lot that's going on there.
And a lot of the things that you see from your kitchen window are things we've worked on. But there's still huge deficits in the environment and funding for environmental protection. Healthcare, we're shivering in our boots on because we have no idea how that's going to play out and what it's going to cost the state. We put a ton of energy and resources into education, and we're the first in the country now in education, because all of our industry is knowledge intensive. But I'm trying to push in tourism, arts, and cultural development the jobs on Main Street, and that bring money into the state, that, you know, because there are other people from other parts of the world coming here, provide employment, and it's a win-win for the state because we make money on it. So we make money to pay for other programs.
And diversifies our workforce.
And while people are willing to invest in the State House billions on life sciences, I'm not getting what I'm supposed to be getting from as a chair from the dedicated revenue stream of the room tax. So, you know, we have these battles constantly.
And that's certainly one that speaks to Concord, doesn't it? Because we see
we're an international destination.
Yeah, we see well over 1 million visitors a year, probably.
And we have, so we have an additional room tax We had the additional meals tax. And from what I can tell from the town officials, that brings in a sizable amount.
How are you best equipped to link with us out there? Is this an email? Is this a blog?
They can email my office. They just Google my name and all the contact information will come up.
Okay.
So you don't have to memorize anything. What I don't do office hours because people didn't show up, but I meet with anybody at Dunkin's.
She does.
Yeah, it was nice.
Doesn't usually take that long to schedule a meeting with me. And what I like about that, it's one-on-one. There's,
No, it's not. You had no end of people who wanted, who wanted to speak with you, which was a lot of fun.
Right.
Yeah.
It's sort of town square kind of meeting. As you know, so they can call my office, call my home number is listed. And I'm out there. You know, people stop me everywhere. We are informed citizens. We know what the issues are. We check the news. We read the newspapers. And we also know, and this is the most important message, I think, of this conversation is, don't try to do it all.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's no person who can do it all.
It will suck you in.
Yeah, you still have a life. It's very complicated. But you don't want it, it's not all or nothing. It's all or something. Pick your moments.
And I think that's the beauty of what you're doing.
That's
Peggy,
what we're
so
trying
thank you.
for. We want to, if you just need to do something or go crazy, but you don't have any time. One family, they have 3 kids, they're homeschooling, and they have 2 jobs. They just have no time to do anything. But they can do a call to action, like the breakfast coffee call. They were calling it. So just do like one a day, or if you have more time, we have sort of little subcommittees that are assigned to each representative, and so they follow, and then they keep us up to date on what's going on with that representative. So it's not even like you have to keep track of all 8 people that represent us. Just
And if you have to keep track, do my Facebook or
Right.
It's all online. The beautiful thing is that social media has changed, revolutionized the way people communicate. So,
we can tap each other on the shoulder within seconds.
We know how, and some of us are just as happy to leave this state and go campaign in the midterms in other states where we want to change the direction. So,
how do we get in touch with you, Peggy, and your group?
Okay, we have a web page. It's www.ccprotectprogress. Our actual official name is Concord Citizens Protecting Progress. And there's a contact form there. So if you just, do your name and email address and send a message, I'll get back with you, and we can, have it when we get like 4 or 5 people, we sort of get together and have coffee, and I'll let you know the kind of things we have going on, and you can see if you feel like we're a good fit for you. Our group seems to be different from some other groups because a lot of groups will have like a regular meeting where they get together, and it would be fun, but we could never find a time when everybody could get together. I mean, it just, people are so busy. So, if we need to get together for a meeting, or if a bunch of people are going to go on a visit and want to get together and make signs, then that's great. And, we might just do a pizza party sometime.
All right, well, our time is woefully short given all we want to talk about, but I do want to thank Peggy Wargelin and Corey Atkins for joining us today. And whatever your political stripe, we hope that you will amplify your voice in a sensible, meaningful way. I think Corey and Peggy have given us a good number of ideas about how to do that and make your voice heard, and that's what our time here was all about, to engage citizens in more dialogue, to better ourselves and better each other. So thank you, and thank you, Peggy, and thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
Thank you.